Hey, everyone. So we've got Coach Dean, Coach Alan here on the other side of the screen, and obviously me, Coach Lizzie, with our first ever Flex Success podcast. What are we teaching people, Dean?
How to be less shit. Didn't you hear the intro?
How to be less shit. And today we've got one of our awesome Flex coaches on, Coach Alan. Maybe we'll just kick it off by asking you to introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
All right. I'm often referred as Coach Yummy, Asian Yummy. No, sorry. No, my name is my name is Alan. I'm Coach Alan, and I have been with Flex Success for 5 years now, just over 5 years now, actually.
Wow.
Oh, no, 4 years. Sorry, 4 years coming up to, it'll be 5 years next year. Wow.
The OG.
God, I got sick of you about you too, so it's really been a long stretch for me.
Yeah, so I've been with the company for, since 2015. I specialize in natural bodybuilding competitions, preparation, and also general population as well. And I guess why I do what I do is because I love to bring value to people's lives. And it's a very, very satisfying knowing that I can be a part of someone's journey and assist them to, I guess, their success and make little lifestyle changes and create something great. And it's really, really rewarding to be a part of that. And because of Flex Success and because of Dean and Lizzie, I have the opportunity to do this for the past 4 years. And here we are recording our first podcast. And then, very honored to be the first one. And hopefully I'm not too shit at this.
We'll see. Well, to give the listeners an idea of your coaching style, I don't do comp prep personally. So one of my clients wants to do a bikini comp, and I'm handing her over to Alan soon. And I said to her that, because, I think it's a bit nervous changing coaches. You don't know what they're like. You don't know anything about them. You have to be open and honest. And, we talk about poo and periods and all sorts of personal stuff with our clients. So it can be daunting. And I said to her, sometimes I ask people like, how are you? I don't really want to know. I just want you to say good, and we're going to move on with the conversation. But when Alan asks how you are, he really wants to know. He's asking how you are. So I just thought that was a good little kind of lead in for people to realize how authentic and caring you are as a coach. And we love that about you, Alan.
Yeah.
As much of a pain in the ass as you are, you're a great coach.
Alan made the joke, obviously, that he's referred to as Yummy, and that may be a story for the end of this podcast or another time. But we also call him Sensei Mao. So if anyone sees Sensei Mao, that's because he's a master of his craft.
And every team meeting, it's Alan.
But I feel like we almost should call him like Papa Mao as well. Like
Papa Mao.
Yeah, like he just pulls people under his wing.
He does.
He looks after them. He's there to make sure you're feeling okay, even if it's at his own expense.
It's actually a good segue, making sure people are feeling okay. We wanted to talk about the psychology of coaching today with Alan.
Yeah.
And we were doing a little brief just before we started recording, and Alan had some gems that I think maybe we should repeat now. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
What have you learnt over your time as a flex coach when it comes to the psychology of coaching or the psychology of the relationship with you and your client?
Yeah, I guess it kind of, it all started out, I guess, for me, a bit of a self-discovery, because I guess I was given a very unique opportunity to come into this coaching space because, I think for most people going to online coaching, they either have been a personal trainer for a long time or, was somewhere in the industry doing some sort of, I guess, mentoring type of role and then go into this online coaching space, whereas I was kind of like, jump straight in, just pretty much from, I guess, my own experience and interest in just helping friends, right? So there wasn't much of so I kind of have to discover everything as I go. And obviously then we were kind of new into this whole thing and we didn't know what Flex was going to become. So I guess in the initial phase, because obviously there's people that we look up to in the industry as far as coaches and things like that, I just thought that, okay, I need to learn more. I need to focus on like the theories and improve my knowledge and all this sort of stuff, right? And then I started to realize that you can learn and know as much as you want, but if you don't have the ability to communicate to the clients, or actually make the clients realize or understand what you're trying to achieve with them. And also, I guess, just make them feel like they are important and, you know, bring value to them, as opposed to just giving them all the science stuff and theory, because that's not me anyway. And that's, I guess, through me trying to figure out what kind of coach I am, and what's my strengths and weaknesses and things like that, that also helped me develop into like, okay, understanding people and also focus on bringing value to people's lives, and I guess just show genuine care of that you actually give a, you know, F about your clients.
We can say
yeah, that's like,
fuck, you know, actually give a fuck about your clients. And I think clients do appreciate that, because, you know, obviously, you know, our service is providing nutrition and training, you know, so that's what we provide. But we all know it goes so much more beyond that. Like, for example, you said that you were discussing like the periods and breakups and all this sort of stuff, right? Divorce and all this sort of stuff. And all these things, I actually think has more value. I mean, plays a bigger role in clients achieving their goals.
Yeah. Can I break that down for listeners as to why? Well, I'll give my opinion as to why that stuff is important, and then you guys can jump in. So I have a client who clearly has anxiety issues. I think maybe some depression as well. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not anyone that can prescribe medication for him or diagnose him with anything. But I can see that him struggling to get out of bed to go to training is impacting his results. I can see that he's so busy in his thoughts and his anxieties that he finds it difficult to just chill out for a second to do his food prep. So we need to talk about that, and we need to kind of untangle that so that he can have some mental and physical time and energy to do his training, to do his food prep, to actually sleep well at nighttime, because his head's a mess. So what I did is I just asked him to go to his GP, get a mental health care plan, and just go and talk to someone about it. But I think men especially, there's this stigma around like, oh no, I'm fine, I'm sweet, I can handle it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like in the beginning, I had to figure out pretty swiftly how to have that conversation without him getting his defenses up. So if I was just to say, hey mate, here's your meal plan, here's your training program, go for it. But he just wasn't doing it, then where do I go from there? You know, so we have to talk about, how are you feeling about this breakup? Okay, so what do you think, if you can't follow this program exactly, let's compromise here. What do you think you can do? And then instead of having an optimal plan that's not followed, we have a plan that's going to get you somewhere, that's better than nothing at all. But why do you guys think that giving a shit or talking about more than training and nutrition is important?
Yeah, well, I mean, your comment there of optimal not followed is a shit plan. I always steal the quote from our friend of the industry. I should maybe not, he's not our friend, but he's a big wig of the industry, Lyle McDonald. And it's good advice not followed is shit advice. And I liken that to the concept of having theoretical knowledge in this space is absolutely necessary, because you need that to ensure the safety of our clients in regards to, you know, nutritional application and training and all the rest of it. But having the ability to provide each individual client with a different type of implementation strategy, and likening that to their psychology, their lifestyle, the integration of social and all the rest of it, is really where the results come from. Because it's all well and good me being a dictator and telling people what to do, but if I you know, am teamed up with a personality that doesn't respond to being told what to do, that psychology of the client is now being missed by me. I may have all the knowledge in the world, but be a terrible coach.
Yeah, I think all of us have such a good understanding of the theory that we know there's so many different ways we can get the result. So we're all comfortable. Like, I mean, if you're a power lifter, too bad. You have to squat, you have to dead, you have to bench. If you're just a client that's after hypertrophy, for example, none of those three things are necessary. They can be helpful. There can be like moderations to those movements, or variations, I should say. But we just know there's so many different ways to skin a cat, and we just need to find the one that's most appropriate for that client. And in Alan's instance, I think what I'm getting from what you're saying is you found the best way to get people to adhere to their plan is getting them to know that you give a shit.
Yeah, 100%. And what you just mentioned there in that case with your client, it's like that right there, it's the difference between, like, I guess, what we are trying to achieve with our clients, because you actually give a shit about this client and recommending something that outside of nutrition training. It's a mental health program, go to see a GP, because you don't get that by paying $49.95 on an ebook of someone on Instagram. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the difference right there. And then for him as a client, it's like, holy shit, like this person actually care about me, not just about taking my money, and actually wants me to help me achieve my results. Now, the likelihood of him actually invest in his health and, you know, and actually follow through the plan and whatever that's given. And now he's going to feel more comfortable talking to you about it, and you can communicate, build a better relationship, which ultimately will allow him to actually follow through and have more confidence in whatever that he's doing, because he's feel comfortable with you and your guidance as a coach, because you have genuine interest in his well-being, not just about like, hey, this is what you gotta do and things like that. And that's exactly it, you know.
I should asterisk disclaimer that we're not life coaches and we don't pretend to be life coaches. We're not trying to be, we know it's outside of our scope of practice, but rather we're trying to get a deep understanding for what's going on in our clients' lives so that we build the best program for them. Because we don't start with any templates at all. The only template we have is tracking everyone's data, getting them to check in once a week. Like, but what happens, you know, between those things, or with the plans specifically, or the conversations we have, how often we have video calls, it's all individualized.
Well, this is where the separation of, I think, theoretical and application comes in play again with the psychology of the client, in that we do take a bunch of data, but we take objective and we take subjective. But I think the most that I learn about a client each week isn't in the confirmation of my theories being played out throughout the week. So it's not like, here's the calories I think you should get, this is the weight that I expect to see come off. All of that's pretty expected, I guess you could say, if the plan's followed. But what I really hone in on is the subjective stuff. And I want to know, like, why did you have a mishap? Why did you deem that not to be as important enough for you to adhere to? What was the struggle around why you went for that particular food, and so on and so on and so on. And when you dive super deep into that subjective feedback on their emotions, state of mind, and all the rest of it, that's the stuff that allows you the opportunity to then switch out your theory stuff to then apply it to that new client. So are there any,
I was just going to give some examples of that.
Exactly. I was going to go the same place, like sort of what are some of the examples, and then also what are some of the strategies you use as a coach collectively to get more out of the client, or questions we may ask?
Can I give examples?
I'll give you.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, I was just going to say the difference between Dean was saying objective and subjective, just so everyone's clear on that. We can also think of that as quantifiable and qualifiable. So quantifiable or objective would be like your scale weight, your circumference measurements, your daily step targets, some sort of numeric value that, you know, we can't really put our opinions on. But qualifiable or subjective data would be like, how would you rate your sleep on a scale of 1 to 10? What was your mood like? What was your energy like? What was your hunger like? Those sorts of things. Yeah. Sorry, Alan, you were going to say?
Yeah. So like what Dean said, like, you know, as far as an example of how we do that for myself, for example, for comp prep, for example, like obviously, you know, we already had that discussion in regards to comp prep, but a lot of my strategies or things I implement or how I set up the prep, a lot of it's evolved around, like, I guess the psychology aspect of, like, because of myself having been through that comp prep and then feeling a certain way in a specific time, like, you know, because we all know that getting to, you know, that low body fat level and so far away from your natural set point and everything, you know, not only, I mean, it's not the healthiest state to be in, but also in the process of getting there, it does impact you psychologically in many ways, and also your life. So yeah, sure, you can throw this number and then, you know, certain calories per kilo, do this, do that. But if, you know, like you say, you know, if the client's lifestyle and psychology isn't there, it's not going to work. And that's why we see a lot of times the numbers says that you should be doing this, but it's not happening. Obviously something's going on there, right?
Yeah.
So like I implement a lot of strategies fast. Like, for example, just to throw it out there, like my low days, my back-to-back refeeds, and how I set it up into different blocks. And all these things, and also I guess how I communicate all these things to clients in each phase from start to finish, it's all based around like, how can I make them feel more comfortable? How can I guide them to make them have a clear understanding of like, this is what we're doing. And then, for example, I'll say things like, not that I'm trying to trick them or anything like that, but for example, towards the end of the prep, when they are doing dieting for only doing 4 low days a week, they have 3 back-to-back refeeds. Now you have 6 weeks left on the diet. I say, okay, think about it now. You only have 24 days left of dieting. The rest is all, you're eating more carbs and things like that. So it's only 24 days. It's easy, right? And then training out, that's how I kind of like, I guess, communicate, play a little bit of a, not trying to trick them, but made them realize that, hey, the light's at the end of the tunnel, and then we're almost there. And then, so they will feel more comfortable in follow through, right? And so I hope, and then I found that really increased the adherence aspect, which then makes the whole process a lot more predictable based on what we, the data that we collect, and also the plan that we set.
Yeah. My circle of clients is much different. Dean does, as you know, bodybuilding only. Alan, you do mainly bodybuilding, a little bit of Gen Pop. I do all Gen Pop, a little bit of performance athletes. So think like boxers and powerlifters. But my guys generally, except for the performance athletes, they don't have to get on stage at a particular date. They want to lose 10 kilos by their birthday, for example. But if they had quite a few shit weeks in between and they only lost 8 kilos, it's kind of on them. They're not too devastated because they've more or less lost the weight they wanted. But for your guys, they either do well or they don't. Like there's no stretching the deadline. There's none of that. So as much as we need to be like understanding of our clients, where do you think, this is a question to both of you, where do you think that line is? Like how much understanding do you want to give, and how much of like a hard whip would you give a comp prep athlete? Because, we obviously have to be hard on our clients sometimes, but when do we know when to do that? What do you guys do?
Well, first, this one from a comp prep point of view can be a bit of a double-edged sword, because on one side of the fence, as the coach and as somebody who works for Flex Success, we have a particular standard that we wish to uphold by getting our athletes on stage at a particular condition in the healthiest manner possible, not looking like they're about to fall over, right? But in order for them to get to that condition, they require a push of some level of, I suppose, to the coach's discretion to say, hey, you just need to like put up and shut up a little bit.
Cup of concrete.
But then also, like, it's realistically just up to the client whether or not they have the intrinsic motivation that's high enough to drive them to hold themselves to a higher standard. And once you get a client who's already satisfied with what they've achieved, if their satisfaction and standard is below ours as a coach, you have competing ideas of what success looks like. And then cracking the whip achieves literally nothing. So I like Alan's strategy of forecasting to the client expectations of relief. I find it makes it easier for prep clients to knuckle in or bear down on the dieting phase and deal with the stresses and the pressures and all that sort of stuff when they know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. So I quite like that sort of foresighted approach as a coach. That is definitely tapping into the psychology of, you only have to, for lack of a better term, suffer for X amount of days before you get relief.
Relief from refeeds.
Relief from refeeds, dietary relief, yeah. So I think there's definitely a point in time where you need to learn as a coach to crack. But if you crack too frequently, understand that as the coach, that's likely because you haven't found the motivation necessary for that individual, especially their own internalized motivation. Because if they're constantly doing things that are going against their intended goal, it tells you that there's a disconnect between intentions and reality.
I really think this is a bit of an art, to be honest. Before I was an online coach, was a personal trainer for nearly 10 years. And I realized that some people love being yelled at. They'll work harder if you tell them they're a piece of shit. I've never really told anyone that to their face.
Apart from Dean.
Yeah, well, all the time, duh. Not even just in private. So if you're really hard on some clients and you're like, hey, you're really training like a pussy today, what's going on? And they're, I'm really sorry. I know I should try harder and the rest of the session is so awesome. Whereas other people need a little bit more understanding. Like, whatever that might mean at the time. And that's how you get them to work harder. So not only do we need to figure out, you know, when is this client slacking off? When is this data not adding up? When is, you know, when are they doing something that they might not be telling us? But also when and how hard to show empathy and when to crack the whip. It's really a fine art.
That is really, really the art of coaching, right? And then I think, I guess throughout the years, of the last few years, and now I guess this is what I like about what we do and who we are as a company, is that we don't just take on anyone. Like, and most of the time during our consultation or whatever, we invest so much time in that to make sure that this person understands that what you are about to take on as a contest prep. And I think Ding will agree that, and I'm sure you will agree as well with some of your, I guess, performance athletes, is like when you have an initial conversation from how they say things and, you know, the words they use and things like that, you can kind of get a good idea of what their mental space is, and also whether they have what it takes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that would kind of give you a bit of, and pretty much like 9 out of 10 times, I think we can sort of see the future of like what's it going to be like. So that's why, like, you know, a lot of times we talk clients out of competing or don't take on specific clients because they just simply not ready, or doing this is probably going to be worse off for them and things like that.
Oh man.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, even though I don't prep people, I have prepped twice before if we're talking about getting on stage. And like, I know firsthand, and also living through 2 of Dean's preps, it's probably the most unhealthy thing you could do. Like, so if somebody's life is all in order and they think that their life can take a hit through comp prep, maybe it's the right time. But if they're like, yeah, I really want to get on stage because I want to do a photo shoot or I want to look good for Instagram, but their relationship is already suffering, they're already working long hours, not sleeping well, they're probably going to crumble halfway through a prep and waste everyone's time.
Yeah, you have absolutely nailed, I think, the inclination that we can get from somebody's language as to whether or not success will be something they achieve with that last comment. Because I'll throw a friend of ours under the bus from last night. She asked me,
name and shame.
No, she her question was, can you help me eat what I want to eat and get the results?
Oh yeah, I know.
And that's a very simple thing to ask, but I immediately went, well, if your first intention is to ask me, can I just tell you what to eat? Well, not even what to eat. Can I tell you how to eat what you want to eat and get the results that you want to get? The likelihood is that you're already eating what you want to eat currently, including the quantity thereof. And therefore, that's why you don't have the results. So that language was very quick. But also, when you're talking about that sort of prep, I am a big advocate, as anyone who follows anything that I talk about with prep, is to not actually say that I'm in an off season. I hate that concept in bodybuilding. I do life season and I do a prep. And the reason why I have a really strong distinction between the two of them is because lots of people say, I'm in the off season as an excuse to have poor behaviors. And then they go, I'm in prep to also have an excuse for really poor behaviors, like completely excluding the rest of their life and shutting down. Whereas when I have the whole concept of I do life and then I do prep, the great thing about that is that when my life is at the point in which I just automatically feel comfortable and ready, and my environment around me is set up in a way that I can probably manage prep, and also you can manage me in prep, then I can go in, like all in. Whereas if I was constantly trying to seek validation of success by doing prep after prep after prep, which is what a lot of people do, and then the same people do this in the Gen Pop world too, like diet after diet after diet after diet. Most people don't actually ask themselves if they're genuinely ready. Everybody wants to be ready. Most people are not.
Yeah, I guess the difference between people dieting and dieting, obviously they're doing it wrong, because you should only have to diet once as a Gen Popper, and then the rest is about maintaining. People who are competing season after season after season, you're not going to be growing, because a prep takes so goddamn long. Growing muscle takes even longer, like any significant amount. So really, I mean, what would the minimum, I don't want to say off season because you've just knocked it, life season be between competing? Or what do you, as a natty, Alan, we'll ask you, what do you think the minimum off season should be?
As a natty, for someone who's trying to, I guess, make proper improvements, I'll say realistically, you need like 2 or 3 years. But I guess it also depends on the person. Like, you know, like for me, I'm actually thinking of competing next year. Oh, yeah. And my reason for that is, and I'll explain. And then my stand on that has changed because, and my reason, it's not because I don't want to make improvements or something like that, or I'm delusional to think that I'll be able to make a lot of improvements, because I understand it takes longer than that. But for me, it's like because I genuinely love bodybuilding. I genuinely love what I do. And if I only compete every 3, 4, 5 years, the next time I compete, I'll be 30, 34, 35. And the following time, by the time I'm 40, I'll only be able to do two preps. Whilst I can and I will now, I want to do it, you know? Because, and then also because during that time, you don't, because I think that's a very, very important, I think to mention as well, is that 99% of us do this sort of stuff as a hobby, like bodybuilding or powerlifting or whatever the sport, unless you're like at the top of your field, you know. But in this case, the people that we work with, majority of us have a career, have a relationship, all the other stuff that takes priority over this, right? So that's also why the psychology aspect is so important, and making sure their lifestyle and everything, it's in order, and also everything we do is to make sure their life outside of this prep or even dieting phase doesn't crumble. Because the last thing that you want is to finish this up. And it's probably why people do prep after prep after prep, because that's the only thing they feel normal now. Because if they don't do it, like, they feel empty, and then their life is completely screwed up. So.
Yeah. Can I take a moment here just to bask in your glory, Alan? Do you want to tell the listeners about all the trophies from just this past season for your Flex Success clients and yours yourself?
Well, that's, I mean, no, I mean, the client's part's probably more like, you know, obviously that's more important. So we have, so I have 3 guys competing in the ICN comps this season, and then one guy, Sean, he won the novice state title, came second in the open, and then went to nationals. He won his open class and novice national title, and then he got his pro card as well, which is really, really cool. And then we have Charlie, who won the state title in weight class and open class. And then he came second at the nationals for classic physique, came 5th in the tough lineup, but then went to last weekend at the World Championship. He actually came both seconds in open class and weight class, and also he won the classic physique. So he's a world champion in classic physique.
That is so cool.
And also Mitch, he came second in the weight class and open class and at a state title, and then came second in the novice title as well. So, and for myself, I've won the overall in the state title. I won the open class at a national title, got my pro card, and I just came 5th place at my first ICN professional show. Yay. So yeah, so pretty stoked. And and then obviously we have our IBB team as well, which, you know, that's another long list of
another long list. For listeners who don't know what we mean when we say natty, we mean natural bodybuilders. Those who are not enhanced. So I think this was obvious to most people, but I don't want to assume any knowledge. Within sports like cycling or swimming, performance-enhancing drugs are purely prohibited. But within some sports like powerlifting, bodybuilding, strongman, there's different what we call federations, but you can think of them as like companies. Some do drug test, and you're strictly not allowed to use particular performance-enhancing drugs, whereas untested federations don't test, and it's sort of an even playing field if everybody does take performance-enhancing drugs. So yes, that's what we mean by natty. The unspoken rule. ICN standing for I compete natural. So
Al, with all that being said, obviously as both a successful athlete and coach, what would be your number one advice to wrap up this section on the psychology of coaching, or the psychology of the client, and basically putting all your eggs in the basket of success? What's your number one advice as an athlete? What's your number one advice as to a client of a coach?
This is a long question.
In regards to their psychology, like things to focus on.
As an athlete, wow, it's a tough one, isn't it? I would say the number one advice is definitely, like, this is what I think it's important, is that if we're strictly talking about bodybuilding, I think that you need to constantly refer and, I guess, ask yourself, what are you doing to be a better bodybuilder, if that's what you want to do. And I think that applies for business. That applies for everything that you do in life. What am I doing to be a better partner? What am I doing to be the best business person? What am I doing to be the best coach I can be? And I guess, especially with bodybuilding, if you want to compete and do well, it really is not a 24/7 thing, but there is a lot of time that you need to invest outside of just lifting weights for 30 minutes in the gym, right? There's other things that you have to take care of. So I guess, my number one advice would be, if your goal is to achieve a specific, to be the best you can be, then you have to constantly refer back to the point that what are you doing to be a better bodybuilder? And my number one advice as a coach would be, this kind of sound contradicting, but like, it's just bodybuilding, and don't let that ruin your life. And that's what we're here for, to help you not only be the best bodybuilder you can be, but also making sure everything in your life is in order or as good as you can be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that point, even though it does sound contradictory on the surface, Dean and Alan was not there at the Renaissance periodization workshop.
Yeah, no, Alan was in Perth.
Oh, yeah.
No, I was in Perth, yeah.
Thanks for moving states, Alan. I and a couple of other Flex coaches went to a seminar, and Dr. James Hoffman was talking on the 4 different categories of gym goers. So, are you a gym rat? Are you a bro-fessional? Are you a professional? What else was there? Anyway, so he says, if you're a professional of any athlete, it doesn't matter if mama's just cooked you lasagna. Sorry, mom, I've got to stay on my diet. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas, you got to train. But if you're just a gym rat and you're just trying to look good, be as healthy as you want to be, then maybe you can stay up late and party once every now and again. You can eat mum's lasagna. You can take time off on holidays. There's 4 different categories, and I'm not really doing it justice here. But why that might not be contradictory, if we really think about it, Alan, is because there's just a small portion of the year, well, maybe not small, that you're prepping where you really have to be on point. And making sure that the other aspects are taken care of as well as you can. But then once that prep is over, we move categories, and we're maybe just more of a gym rat now, and helping our clients understand when and how to transition out of those categories, when to be a bit more flexible on our diet, when really not to is really important. Because some people, I don't know if you guys find with your clients, they beat themselves up about not being perfect 100% of the year, even when they're not prepping.
Yep, absolutely. And the other thing is too, is like, if you don't know where you're at on that scale of professionalism, let's call it, or even the intensity of the goal, is you don't know what your success is again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that would be my advice from a psychological point of view, whether you are embarking on a sports performance endeavor, a physical goal from a prep point of view, or even just a body composition goal. You need to really sit down and define what success is to you in the long term and then in the short term, so that each week when you go through and you sort of tick off your daily tasks or your weekly tasks for what you've been doing each time to assist in the change, you know what success is. And it might be that having one drink out with the girls or the guys is still okay, and that's a part of your long-term success plan. If you don't factor that in and then you do that, you have this immediate assumption that you failed. And then that's when a lot of people, I think, lose their shit, throw their hands up and say, oh, well, I've messed up this once. I may as well do it for the entire weekend and start again on Monday.
Yeah. Welcome binges.
Yeah.
Something worth sharing, shall we?
Yeah, let's move into some of our cool little subsections to this podcast that we're going to be doing. The first one is something worth sharing. We're going to ask all of our guests. And you, Alan, are one of our guests today. So is there anything that you've watched, seen, read, done, been involved in,
sniffed, shelved?
Yeah, sniffed or shelved, it works too, that you think is worth sharing to the listeners?
I guess, well, this one, I guess, is very personal to me. I guess it applies to my personal circumstances, I suppose, because I guess, with my personal stuff that's been going on the last few months and things like that. I've started listening to You Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, and a lot of stuff in there. I guess I use that to, I guess you can say, drew motivation, and use that to apply to different aspects of my life. So if anyone is, I guess, looking to, read a book or something to improve their life, I think Can't Help Me is a really, really good book.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
David Goggins is a beast.
We also wanted to ask you some questions, Alan.
I feel like we need this drum roll, but it's not. It's the
well,
final
actually,
question.
I created something called a soundboard, because what I wanted, I had this big vision for the podcast where if Dean said something stupid, I could press the soundboard and it'd be like a chipmunk giggling at him.
But then the whole podcast would just be chipmunk sounds.
I can't be trusted with a soundboard, guys. I cannot be trusted. So it got taken away from me. So there would have been a drum roll if I had it my way.
Yes.
Maybe in future podcasts. You asked the first question, Dean.
Yes. So if we haven't said it already too, Alan, thank you for your time today, mate. It's been very much appreciated, and I hope people that have been listening have got a lot out of it. But for the final questions on the Flex Success podcast number 1, Alan, if you could solve one mystery, what would it be?
It could be scientific, economic, anything, psychological.
Oh, this is gonna. Is God real?
Oh,
I know the answer, mate.
That is a mystery.
That's a good one.
And that is a can to open, my friend.
Is it a mystery though? I don't know.
In number 1.
It's really,
I don't know. I didn't say yes or no. I just say it's got real.
For those that haven't got the pleasure of watching this,
that should be the title of this podcast.
Yeah, maybe we will. As he asked that question, or if he asked if he could solve that mystery, was absolutely priceless. Cool. Interesting.
If you got arrested with absolutely no explanation, what would your family and friends assume you got arrested for?
Probably my family and friends arrested for probably something to do with driving. Hey, like
he's Asian for people who aren't watching this on YouTube.
Exactly.
Why? What's wrong with you driving, Alan?
Well, I thought my driving was okay, but people don't think I can drive. So,
for those playing at home, as having been a passenger of Alan's,
we agree with that. We also
he would be arrested for driving too slow.
And not looking around.
Brakes too often.
Changed now, but also driving way too low, like he's Snoop Dogg.
He does. The chair's all the way back.
He was reclined. His legs were at full extension. Almost like practicing how to be a ballerina while driving. He would have had that much toe point.
It's so funny. I think this is a good point in time in the podcast to explain why we call you Yummy Mao.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain it, Alan, or do you want to throw?
No, it's not funny if I say it. Like, I think.
So funny. All right. So we were, I think 4 of us coaches were in Sydney for a seminar, or I don't know what we were there for. And
Evil Genius.
What was it for?
Evil Genius, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We released the bad man, Mr. Broderick Chavez, into the population for the very first time in Australia.
We'll have to get him on the podcast soon.
It went next level.
So I think Dalton and Dean were walking ahead of me and Alan.
Yes.
And we were staying in a very popular gay district in Sydney. I think it was Darlinghurst.
Yep.
And this guy comes strutting past, right? Like full strut, little short shorts. He stops and looks at Alan and goes, Asian, yummy. And it was the best moment of my life. At that point, Alan thought about leaving his missus for this guy, I'm sure.
His cheeks were rosy. And ever since then, he is now officially Alan Yummy Now in my phone, and it will never change.
Yummy.
Oh, that was funny.
It was hilarious.
It was really great. I think there was like a bit of a lip lick and a little hip thrust.
Just off Oxford Street in Sydney.
Yeah.
Of all the places.
Yeah, it was there.
You want to be.
Yeah.
All right, final question.
Shout out to the gay community, by the way, who we fully embrace. So please don't take that the wrong way.
Big love.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. Final question. Let's hit him with this one. Alan, are you ready?
Oh, yeah. Is it me?
I'm ready.
It's you.
Without a question.
You can embrace
Would
it.
you rather have sex with a goat and no one knows, or not have sex with a goat and everyone thinks you did?
Probably not have sex with a goat, but everyone think I did.
Are you just saying that?
I'll feel more comfortable that way, I think.
Yeah.
Just because I actually didn't do it. But because
But then everyone would think you did. It'd be so bad.
Yeah, but
I think you can reconsider.
people are gonna think what they're gonna think anyway. So
Well, they're not gonna think.
like, if you ask me a question like maybe a few years ago, I'll probably say like, oh, I'd rather like have done it, but people don't know about it. But now I'm just like, oh yeah, I didn't do it. So do you think
it is, as you mature, you learn that really the only person whose opinion matters is your own, and maybe the close circle of friends around you.
And your missus if you want to get laid.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be happening if you had sex with a goat.
What if I had sex with the goat, as in the greatest of all time?
The greatest goat?
No, the acronym, GOAT, the greatest of all time.
But in what?
Critter is the greatest of all time in Australian powerlifting, according to some people.
Him.
If I really looked up to the person, maybe I could understand and give you a forgiveness card once. Yes. Yeah. But we're not talking about the acronym goat, Dean. We're talking about a real goat. So, Alan, I would ask you, where can people find you on social? But you're part of Team Flex, so maybe we'll skim past that question, eh?
Oh, you may as well tell us. Where can we find you, Alan?
You can find me on FlexSuccess.
.com.au.
Email us at info@flexsuccess.com.au, or you can find us on Instagram or my personal Instagram, Alan Mao, but it's pretty much just all FlexSuccess
Isn't
stuff
it
anyway.
Alan Yummy Mao?
I was going to say, and if you do inquire for the services of Alan Mao, it is a necessity for you to now request Mr. Yummy /Sensei /
I'll start getting emails as though.
It's funny because all the emails actually go to our assistant, so she'll be like, "What the fuck is going on?"
Ooh, yummy.
Yeah. So we'll put all of that in the show notes, obviously, though, anyway.
Yeah. So we'll wrap it up with what's going on with Flex.
Hey? Yeah. What's going on with Flex, Liz?
What is going on with Flex?
I don't know what's going on with Flex. I'm only part of the business. I don't know what's going on with Flex. No.
So
I know.
Podcast. Go on, Alan. What's going on with Flex?
We've got I should have mentioned this earlier. We've got an ebook coming out called Life After Dieting, and it's actually have touched up on a lot of things that we just spoke about before, like the psychologist's bag and how to deal with diet, post diet, and how to manage life and everything like that. So yeah, do you guys want to give more details on the release date and all this sort of stuff?
Yeah, so it should be live by end of November, probably the same time that this podcast goes up-ish. Mm-hmm. But we're taking pre-sales, so you can order online, use the code FLEX20 for 20% off before December 31, 2019.
Yep.
So the book, essentially, go to the website and read it, but we'll read the back page. But it's pretty much about life after dieting. How to live life after weight loss without putting it back on, because we know that lots of people can lose weight, but the hard part is keeping it off. So if we diet right, we should only diet once.
Yep.
Disclaimer, we're not talking about those who get on stage for a bodybuilding show, because that weight loss is not sustainable. It's not meant to be. After you get off stage, at Flex Success, we have a 4-week minimum requirement after your last show to keep working with a coach to try and help you put on a healthy amount of weight at a healthy speed and maintain that thereafter.
Yeah, that recovery phase. But absolutely, there's lots of tools and tricks and information in the book that can give people the opportunity to maintain a healthier weight, as opposed to blowing out past the pre-prep weight. So that's the main thing that's going on with Flex at the moment. Obviously, this podcast and anything else new, I'm sure we'll inform you all on the next one.
Oh, we got research reviews, once-off consults, all sorts of stuff, but save that for another podcast, eh?
And if you guys want to jump on board with us with Comp Prep, get in touch with us ASAP, because I'm pretty sure the spots have been filled out. I think Dean's already pretty much full for season A and B. I think Dalton and myself have a few spots left. I've got a few doing season B, so I think we have a few spots open for season A. So by the time this comes out, if they want to, it will be like less than 20 weeks. So if they want to jump in, they have to.
For season A 2020,
Yeah.
Cool.
Over and out.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Bye.
See ya.